Why I quit using the dark web. My story begins a few years ago. I decided to use my computer skills to run a small darknet forum, mainly just to share information without censorship. At first, I was extremely paranoid about my site getting hacked and having my anonymity being compromised, so I went online and began to research everything that I would need to ensure my own safety. After countless days of scouring blogs, forums, and other material, I decided I was ready now. I didn't have any money, so I couldn't just buy a VPS and host the site offshore or whatever. So I decided to use my old laptop. After all, I wasn't planning on running a major website. So after setting the server up and what I thought was literally every single thing I could to do, harden it against attack, I put the site online. Everything went great for a couple of months. Donations rolled in as the user base grew larger and larger. After around 5 months, the user base had gotten so big I had to upgrade and migrate everything to a new PC, which I built just to host the forum. And from there, everything seemed perfect. The site was running smoothly, and there were no issues with the migration, until one day when I came home and noticed the PC had frozen. I didn't think much to it. Maybe just a software bug caused it, so I rebooted. And that's when it was clear to me something was wrong. The PC lit up and beeped a few times, then shut off. So I thought to myself, okay, so it's a hardware issue. After a few hours trying to diagnose the issue, I figured it out, and it turned out the RAM had been corrupted. I took it back to the store since it was still under warranty. The customer rep just told me it might have just been a faulty stick. When I got home, I replaced the stick of RAM and had the site back up and running within a few hours. Everything seemed to be perfect again. I apologized to the users for the downtime, and everyone seemed to be happy enough. Fast forward a few more months. The forum's been up and running for around a year and a half now. This is when things started to get really weird. I finished work on a Friday. It was a gorgeous day. In the middle of summer, I came home, had something to eat, and sat down in front of my PC and noticed I had a message. Upon opening the message, I realized that somewhere I'd messed up. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not like Assange or anything, so I don't really know why anybody would actually target me, but the world is a crazy place, so whatever. The message had my details from my name, address, bank details, passwords, private emails, private messages, everything from nearly every single device I owned. I freaked out and immediately took the PC offline, turned my internet off, but little did I know that this guy had done his research. After a couple of hours pacing my room, I received a text message. I know everything about you. The message was sent via some type of SMS service, so there was no way to trace it, and then my phone rang. Don't talk. Just listen. I know everything there is to know about you. All I want is 2 Bitcoin or things get worse. I'll send you a text with the wallet details. The phone call ended just as quickly as it started. I opened my laptop up and checked my Bitcoin wallet. There was enough left over from the donations just to pay this guy off and hope that would be the end of it, so I entered the guy's details and sent the payment. My phone rang again. Thank you for complying. Unfortunately, someone I know really likes you. He hung up panicking. I tried calling the number back. An automated message began to play. The number you have dialed has not been recognized. A few hours passed and I began to think to myself, well, maybe the last call was just him having fun, and decided after a long day, I'd just go to bed. Sometime around 2 a.m., I was woken up by the sound of banging at my front door. I jumped out of bed and turned on all the lights, grabbing a knife from the kitchen. I walked slowly towards the window and looked out. I could see someone standing by a car when they spotted me. They got in and drove off. I rushed to the door in hopes I might be able to get a license plate, but by the time I'd opened it, they'd already turned the corner. As I turned, I noticed an envelope on the floor. I picked it up, went back inside and locked the door, closed the curtains, and sat in the kitchen. I placed the envelope on the counter and stared at it for around half an hour, trying to muster up the courage to open it. Did these guys really come to my home? I thought to myself. After the half hour was up, I decided enough was enough. I opened the envelope and pictures fell out onto the counter. They were of me sleeping. These guys had not only been outside my house, they'd been inside whilst I was sleeping. The images had been edited and strange love hearts had been added next to me. So now I was sufficiently freaked out. I didn't go back to sleep, and when the sun broke the darkness, I decided to head to the police station and tell them everything. I hadn't broken any laws, so I hoped they would just help me. At least after hours of explaining everything to them, they told me there was nothing they could do. At this point, I had never felt so alone in the world. I was scared of what this guy was planning for me. I didn't have the foggiest idea what I was supposed to do or expect, so I decided to wipe everything, my laptop, PC, and phone. I picked up everything I needed, stuffed it all into a bag, and decided to leave. I had a couple of friends that I knew I could rely on, so I called up my old buddy Marcus, and we met. Had a few beers, and I explained everything to him. He offered me a place to stay, and I hoped that would be the end of it. How wrong I was. A few days later, it happened again. There was a knock at the door. First thing in the morning, me and Marcus both went out to find another envelope on the floor. Same thing, pictures of me sleeping. But these were in Marcus's house. I started freaking out again, and Marcus just said, "Okay, well, we need to do something, maybe set a trap or something." So we went over numerous ideas, everything you could think of from cameras to baiting him, and we settled on the idea of staying up during the night and locking him in the room. We filled the bed up with pillows, set up cameras, and even barred the windows in the room. We hid in the room next door. After a few hours had passed, we heard the lock rattling on the front door, and we knew it was game time. We'd left the door just slightly ajar so we could see outside as he went past, and the moment he went into the room, we both sprung to action quickly as we could. We closed the door and locked it from outside using a chair and a metal bar. There was only one way he was getting out, and he'd have to destroy the door. We could see the silhouette of him as he paced the room quietly. It was creepy as fuck. We called the police as we kept an eye on him. At last I thought I can finish this and move on with my life. Just as the police arrived, we noticed the guy take a gun out and place it to his head. He held a sign up which read, "I love you," and he pulled the trigger. The police barged in, guns drawn, told us both to get the floor. We complied and shouted, "He's in there," pointing at the door. The police removed the makeshift lock and entered the room, called for an ambulance, and put me and Marcus in the back of a police car. I'd been sat in the interview room for a good couple of hours, I guess, whilst they carried out the investigation when a detective came in and sat down in front of me, opening a folder and placing pictures on the table. "Do you know her?" "Her?" I said, looking at the pictures. "No," I replied, confused. He looked at me and said, "This is the person who's been stalking you." And he then began to tell me they had visited her home and found a shrine with photos of me all over the place, from restaurants to the gym, even shopping. He went on to tell me that she'd been the one that sent the messages, made the phone calls, etc., and they'd also found a diary which had some kind of future plans for me and her. She wanted me to be her husband, and we'd been chatting for around a year and a half from the moment I started the forum. After I explained everything, the detective said I was lucky to be alive. She had actually planned to drug me and kidnap me. She had even made some makeshift lock bed so I wouldn't be able to escape. To this day, I feel lucky, and I haven't been on the dark web since.